you'll get a little note on your side. And then I'm just going to share my screen here. Okay. Can you guys see that? Kind of like yesterday, the refill workshop. Okay, awesome. I'm going to bring up the chat so I can see if you guys are seeing anything. Okay, so kind of like yesterday, I have the chat open and I kind of just have it off to the side just so that I can kind of focus when I'm talking, but then when we do workshop stuff that I can bring up the chat and I can access that. Sorry, just trying to move everything around so I can see you guys and my notes and stuff. Okay, cool. Okay, so essentially today we're going to be talking about the other side of that cup equation, right? So yesterday talking about what's coming out, now we're talking about what's going into that cup. So what are the resources, what is filling that cup, what is going into it? And we're going to share some ideas about health and about another tool that you can use, kind of like the tool we used yesterday. I'm going to show you guys another tool that is very helpful for your health and recovery. Okay, so I'm just going to take a sip here. So we're going to first start by us answering this question. So I know it sounds like a vague question, it's meant to be vague, but just give like the number that comes up for you. And just tell me the number on a scale of 1 to 10. If I just asked you, how healthy would you say you are? Just give me a number on like one being like the worst health ever, 10 being like I'm incredibly healthy. What number would you give yourself? And just next to that number, just give me like one sentence as to why you say that. It doesn't have to be like a lengthy thing, but just a one sentence thing of like, this is why that number comes to mind. Okay, 5. Lasso, what is your reason? What is your why? What is the reason you gave that answer? Amara, 6, eating okay, but just had a baby. Oh, that's so exciting. No time for exercise. Okay. Tash, 8, move a lot, no diagnosed conditions or medications. Bex, 7, physically strong, mentally stressed. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Em, you want to share? You don't have to. Lauren, I'm doing a little bit of everything, eating healthy, exercising, but not enough of everything, I think. Okay, cool. So the reason I asked this is because I want you guys to notice 2 general trends when we're talking about our health, when we're thinking about how healthy we are, when we're saying like, this is healthy or that's healthy. There are 2 main things. The M7, fear of illness or pain, but not energized and motivated, full overflowing cup. Nice. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. So the one trend that we tend to see is a focus on physical health. So of course, physical health is incredibly important, right? If we don't have the actual like physical thing that we are doing life with, there's no way the other stuff can be relevant, right? Of course, it's incredibly helpful. But remember that there are all these other areas of health. Even when we tend to talk about mental health, we tend to separate that. Like we have normal health and then we have mental health. We specifically say it as a separate thing, right? So that's one of the things. We tend to focus on our physical health rather than the entirety of our health. The second trend that you might notice when people are answering the question of like, am I healthy, is a focus on the actual behaviors or the tools, right? So someone will tell you how they're eating or how they're sleeping. And again, of course, that's incredibly important. Like if you gave me a chance, I would talk about sleep like the whole day and you wouldn't be able to shut me up, right? It's amazing. Like sleep, nutrition, exercise, these things are incredible tools, but they are tools to get us to health. They are not health in and of themselves. In other words, you could tell me exactly what you're eating and I still wouldn't know how healthy you are. You could tell me exactly how you're sleeping and I still wouldn't know how healthy you are. And think about if they are a tool, kind of like we were saying yesterday, a reflex hammer could be used like, to actually be a diagnostic tool and be helpful, or you could like use the same hammer to like hit your person over the head. Please don't say that. I'm saying we should do these things. But I'm just saying how you use the tool is the point, it's not the tool itself, right? So in the same way, think about nutrition. Sometimes food or nutrition, or however you want to say that, sometimes we're using it for longevity goals. Sometimes I'm using it for performance. Sometimes I'm using it for pleasure and joy. Sometimes I'm using it for social connection. Sometimes it's cultural. Sometimes it's religious, right? We use those things for different purposes, and how we use the tool affects which area of health we're actually optimizing for based on how we use those things. And it affects what happens to the other areas of our health. For example, if I have on paper like this perfect diet, but it's because I hate my body and I'm trying to make a difference, or I'm so anxious about the way that I eat, I need it to be perfect, otherwise I don't feel worthy, or I don't feel like I'm doing things right. It can affect positively or negatively all the other areas of our health as well. So just thinking of it as it's a tool to get us to health. And in our case, specifically in this context, we're talking about filling our cup. And that is how we want to use nutrition, how we want to use sleep, how we want to use things like routines, things like medication. Yeah, medication as well, but meditation is what I was going to say. So all of these things are all tools to get us to that full cup. And I just want to make the point that sometimes the way that we're using it is actually draining from our cup instead of actually being something that's adding to our cup. So just remembering that. And this is where the idea of deep health comes in. So deep health is a concept by Precision Nutrition. I always get that pronunciation muddled up. Precision Nutrition. And that is the company that I did my health coaching certification through. So in this model, we are looking at health from a very deep perspective, or you can think of it like a wide perspective. So we are looking at this from a deeper perspective to answer the question a little bit more, deeper, wider, when we're trying to answer, like, am I healthy, or how healthy am I? And we're looking at all of these things. So starting with physical on the left, right? We're feeling healthy, we're feeling energized, we are thriving, we are pain-free, we're performing and we're functioning well. And then mentally, you're feeling alert, you're feeling focused, you feel competent, capable, you're able to learn things, you remember them, you can solve problems. And then emotional health. What is your general mood? What is your outlook on life? Do you feel the full range of human emotions? Do you allow yourself to feel all these emotions, or do you push away certain negative emotions or try to run from them, hide from them? Do you feel like you can express your emotions to someone in a sort of mature and connective kind of way? Do you feel that you mostly experience what we would call deeply positive emotions, right? Calm, hopeful, positive. There's a ratio called the positivity ratio, which says that to be happy, to be like genuinely happy, we need a ratio of 3:1, 3 positive emotions to every negative emotion. And again, that's not 3:0. We still need negative emotions. They're part of our deep health, and they are kind of like the anchoring thing. But we need so many more positive emotions to almost balance that, because we weight negative emotions so strongly. So your emotional health, relational health, like how connected do you feel with other people, with the loved ones in your life? Do you feel like you can be yourself? Do you feel like you can be authentic? Do you have a sense of belonging? Do the people around you encourage your deep health? Do they root for you? Do they believe in your growth, in your capacity? And then existential health. So we're looking at like, do you identify with a deeper sense of why in your life? Do you feel like you have a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning? Do you live your life according to your deeper values? Does it reflect your deeper values? And then lastly, environmental. So in this context, environmental meaning like your environment from like a micro to a macro uh, outlook, like your immediate environment, maybe your clothing, your space, how it looks, how it feels, what your home is like, what your community is like, what your bigger, like wider community, political environment, the country that you live in. So all these layers of your environment and how they contribute to your health and well-being. Do you have safety? Do you have access to things? What are you exposed to? So if we look at health from like this deeper perspective, right? What might it actually look like for us to start prioritizing our health, right? Like maybe you message me and you're like, I am so glad that I finally started prioritizing my health. I had that conversation with my partner that's been on my mind for so long and I was putting it off and we finally did it and we connected and our relationship is so much stronger. Maybe you say, I'm so glad I finally prioritized my health. I bought this incredible artwork that makes my space feel so beautiful. And like every time I walk past it, I just feel like so excited and joyful, right? Maybe you say, I finally prioritized my health. When I started going for long walks on a Sunday afternoon, right? It can look so different because there are so many aspects of our health and they all affect one another. And it also just makes it so much more meaningful to us. It makes it so much more relevant to our life. And in a very deep sense, it is our life, right? We're not separating our life from our health. Think about the things that we say. We say like, I was trying to, prioritize my health or be healthy, but then life got in the way, right? We separate them. And what could it mean to have them as the same thing? Or maybe we say things like I would be healthy, but like I really actually want to enjoy my life, like that is the point of health. Like health should enable everything that you want life to be and everything that you want to do in your life and everything you want it to feel like. It can be about joy, it can be about your capacity, it can be about freedom and possibility. It doesn't have to be restriction and rules and restraint. And it also makes health much more resilient. It makes your health feel more solid, let's say. So you're not then worrying about these like tiny little details of like, oh, if I eat this, then, what if that like destroys my health, whatever. Like you get less, I would say like perfectionistic or worrying and being anxious about the really small things because you get that it's so much bigger than that. And the way that I like to think about it is if you filled each of these little like sections of the pie chart by 50%, it would still be fuller than if you just made one perfect and had one very like completely full. So it makes it more resilient. It has a big impact. So we're almost thinking of like, what are the simple foundational behaviors in each of these categories that would help us get most of the way there, right? And most of the way there would give us such a strong, resilient, beautiful health foundation that we can almost do anything from. And the last thing I want to say why I love this is because it makes it so much more personal. Because your deep health picture is going to look completely different to mine. And so it's very, you can't really easily say like, oh, well, that's not healthy, or that's not healthy, or this is healthy, or whatever it is, because it completely depends on your own unique deep health, like the combination of your deep health. And a similar thing with the tools, right? It's like if someone says that the way that you are exercising is not correct, And you can be like, well, you don't know what I'm using this tool for. Like, I could be using it for my mental health. I could be using it for my existential health. I could be using it for my physical health, right? It makes me think of this. There's this meme of this guy saying, any exercise is a low back exercise if you just do it wrong enough. And he's going like, I thought about this, right? And I just think of like someone saying, oh, I do this exercise for my low back. And you're like, that's not an exercise for your low back. And you're like, you don't know how wrong I'm doing it. I sort of think of that kind of idea. Like, we don't know what someone else is using that thing for. Like, how are they using that tool? Because we don't know what their deep health looks like. And it enables us to make it much more personalized and unique to us. Okay. So we can think of the stuff that's in our cup, the resources, the reserves, right? That is our deep health. So that is made up of our physical health, our mental health, our emotional health, relational, existential, and environmental. It's made up of everything. So we're going to do an audit, kind of like we did yesterday. I'm going to give 2 minutes, and then we're going to just brainstorm like as many things as you can of the things that are going into this cup, and however you conceptualize that, whether you use those headings of the different areas of your health, whether you just tap again into that feeling that we tapped into yesterday of like, what does it feel to have a full cup? What does it feel like to have a full cup, right? And think of like, what things make me feel that way? And that can also be like, what are the resources? It can also be support that you have in your life. So however you kind of feel that it's filling your cup, you can brainstorm that. So I'm going to start the clock and go for it. Like Phoebe's running versus Rachel's running. Yes, exactly. About 30 seconds left. Okay, cool. Have you guys got a few things or do you need a little bit more time? Good. You're welcome to obviously go afterwards and keep building this list. Okay. So what I want you to identify here is like, which area of these do you maybe feel the least resourced? Like, where do you feel like I don't have much reserve in that specific area? Like, if you had to look at those areas of your health, which one do you feel is maybe the least resourced? And you can again give me a rating. So from 1 to 10, where do you feel like it is on this in the sense of resources? So 1 being like almost no resources to 10 being like it's the little mini cup of those cup is like full, or that little pie chart is full. So the least resourced, and then you're racing from 1 to 10. Yeah. So Lauren saying it feels so complicated and intertwined. That makes total sense. And they are, right? They're so interconnected. But maybe if there's one that really stands out to you, like this is the one where if I had to like focus my attention and energy on in the coming while, like what would that be? Emotional, probably the least resource. Okay. So how would you rate your emotional health or resources from 1 to 10? And I'm happy to read the descriptions again if you guys need. Mental 5. Sure. Give me a second. Okay, so physical, healthy, energized, thriving, pain-free, you performing and functioning well. Mental, alert, focused, competent, capable. You can learn, you can remember, you can solve problems. Emotional is your general mood, your ability to regulate your emotions, express them, not push away negative. You allow yourself to feel those emotions. Relational, feeling connected and authentic with others. Support, a sense of belonging. Existential, your why, your sense of meaning and purpose, your outlook on life in general. Is it optimistic or pessimistic? Living life according to your deeper values. And then environmental, that what's around you from in different layers, whether that supports your health, what you expose to, safety, access to things, etc. Does that help, La? Okay, so Tash is mental 5, M existential 5, Amara emotional least resource 3, don't really know what tools to employ with it. Awesome. Becca relational 5. Okay, cool. Have you got everyone? La, do you want to change yours or yours? Still emotional. Still emotional. And maybe just give me a rating of your emotional 6. Okay, cool. So if you take that number, your rating, and you just have to increase that by 1 point. Like if you're a 5, you want to get to a 6. If you're a 3, you want to get to a 4. If you're a 7, you want to get to an 8. You just want to go up 1 point. What might be one action that you could take to do that? It could take you 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a very simple action that just gets you moving slightly to the next number. We're not trying to jump to a whole new realm. We're just trying to get a slight shift. And you can share any actions that you come up with. Let me know if you need help brainstorming an action as well. Sitting still and allowing the feelings I currently feel. Okay, awesome. And could you make that into a practice? Like at this time of day, I could set aside 5 minutes to sit still and allowing the feelings, or is it maybe like when I notice I'm triggered, I'm going to take 1 or 2 minutes and whatever, like where would that fit into your life as a practice or an action? Emotional, I usually went to my husband, but it's unfair to unload on him. Okay. So would you want to Would you want to find someone else that you can have that conversation with, or would you want to maybe chat to him about whether he feels it's unfair, or like shift that relationship, or would you rather find someone else that you have that conversation with, or by yourself, like some emotion practice? Okay, awesome. So like in that you can do yourself rather than like, here you go. Okay, cool. So one of the tools, sorry, that you could maybe try out is the one that we used yesterday, so the STEM app. It'll be on the replay, and let me know. We can also go through it together because I know you wanted to be here yesterday and you couldn't. So we can always go through that together if you want to. But I would say that could be a cool tool to start with because it doesn't take long. And now probably when I want to go do something else instead of sit in the discomfort of the thing that'll get off my emotional to-do list. Okay, cool. So maybe you could have like something that will trigger you to do that. And for you, maybe that's that feeling of like when I feel uncomfortable and I want to do something else, that's when I like sit. And maybe what could be helpful is like, I'm not trying to get myself to do something else. I just want to practice or trying to get myself to do the thing. Like maybe you still end up going to do something else, but just practicing, like sitting in that discomfort with no additional agenda. Anyone else got an action? Amara, if there's any other like tool that you already know of that you think like, oh, this helps me emotionally, it could always be that. Like we can use the steer map or the other tool that I have, but you can also, if there's something that you already know, like this helps me, but you just want to do it, right? Like maybe you know that helps, but like you're struggling to actually do it maybe. Tash, reduce overthinking, be aware of thoughts, not follow the thought train, be consistent in interrupting the thought pattern. Okay, cool. So let's maybe try to think of one action that we could do. So maybe we could have some sort of cue either in the moment, but sometimes that's quite difficult. But maybe you could get into the practice of like practicing it. Let's say, for example, you do it for a few minutes in the morning, like that steer map, because you're learning that skill of self-distancing. And once you start doing that more and more often consciously, you'll realize you start doing it in the moment as well. So maybe you can start practicing it more consciously, and then later it might flow into your everyday life. But yeah, try and maybe make that into like a 5-minute practice in the morning. I just do one steer map or something like that. Or at the end of the day, something that triggered me, I just do a steer map on that or something like that. Existential, taking time to be still and connect to where I am that day, or just notice things. Instead of just being caught inside each action, take a step back to notice context. Awesome. So maybe we could also make that into some kind of action, or maybe even just thinking of like, when would you remember to do that, or how would you remember to do that? Maybe again, a practice that you want to do. Again, with all of these things, like if you're struggling to do it, that's what we're going to focus on the next step. So don't worry about like, I can already do this, but maybe you have like you want to take 5 minutes in the morning to just be still and connect, or maybe at the end of the day, or maybe when you, let's say, see a certain environmental cue, that's going to be your cue, like, okay, I need to take that moment. So some sort of action that could be put into your day. I usually find if I meditate or nap, I also get over my anxiety. Awesome. So yeah, we could pick the, let's say, meditating, or napping, whichever you could do them both at the same time. Meditate and then let that go into a nap. So maybe you can pick which one you want to start with, maybe which one feels more accessible to you. And maybe meditating you could probably do more on demand, whereas napping might not be able to be possible. So maybe 5 minutes of meditation. Bex, relational, reduce the amount that I allow my relational aspects that don't actually serve me. Okay, so Bex, how would we put that into like an actual action, like something that would take you 5 or 10 minutes to do? Maybe maybe you can give me a bit more detail on what you mean, if you want to. Otherwise, just think of some sort of action step that allows you to do that thing that you mentioned. So maybe it's taking a couple of minutes to do something, right? Maybe it's doing the steer map. Maybe it's reflecting on something, or just writing something down, or yeah, depends on the details. But if you don't want to tell me, just find an action and let me know. Working less. Okay. I need to reduce my current work environment. Okay, was that the relational one? I mean, you're welcome to do like multiple of these, but we just want to pick one for now. So maybe if that one's easier to like talk about, we'll use that one. So working less, reduce current work environment. So maybe an action would be having a certain conversation with boss, or maybe an easier step is planning that conversation, or asking to have that conversation. But we want like an actionable 5 to 10 minute step. Okay, cool. Does everyone have something? You can share the actual step that you're going to take, 5 to 10 minutes. So let's make it really actionable. Anyone want to share their specific action? Mara, are you going to meditate? Okay. 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Okay. Let's start with 5. Okay, cool. And so sitting still, noticing the discomfort, when are you going to do that? When does it fit into your day? So M, instead of drinking coffee while doing other things, to try and use my coffee time to just be still and do nothing else. Awesome. Okay, Tash, mental, steer map, 5 minutes at the end of the day. Awesome. And I get triggered to do something else. Okay, awesome. Cool. Okay, so now we're going to take that action, and you can use the action, or the you can, use the steer map that we did yesterday. You can go back and look at the replay to do the action as well. So you can use that tool for this as well. I've kind of picked the tools to talk about on different days, but you can use them on both days. They're not like specific to either a draining thing or a filling thing. It's just to introduce you to the tools. So you're welcome to use the steer map for this as well, right? Like you could put the action you want to do in the A line and reverse engineer that to think about what thoughts and emotions do I need to be experiencing in order for that to be possible. You can also, this is where we like get to play with the map a little bit, is like just put the idea of doing that thing in the S line and think about like, what does that make me think? Like, does it let me give you an example. Like if you put going for a daily walk in the S line, right? And then you just write down like all the thoughts that you have about that. And maybe stuff like, that's not going to work, or this is going to get in the way, or I've never done that. I'm going to do it for a couple of days and then it's going to stop. Or like, what if it's raining? Like whatever it is, like you could have all these thoughts about it, and then you can go and look at those thoughts, look at the emotions that they create, and is that a helpful emotion to be able to do the action that you want to do? So you can use the steer map on this as well. Let me know if you need any help with that. But we're going to use a different tool. We're going to use Deep Health as an actual tool. Let me just get this out of the way. Okay. So essentially, when we're using it as a tool, we're trying to look at it as how can I find opportunities for support in the other areas of my health? So when you're thinking of that 5 or 10-minute action, you can start to look at the other areas of your health and say, where can I find support in these other areas? And it doesn't have to be from each one. I'm just going to give you a few examples, but it doesn't have to be from each one. It can just be from one of these areas where you can find support for that. So let's say I have planned to have a certain conversation with my partner that I've been putting off for a while. Okay. Let's say I look at my physical health and I think like, how can I use physical health as a support to be able to have this conversation easier? Maybe I say, let's go for a walk while we have this conversation because it's easier for me to talk while I walk. Or maybe we say, what mental space can I use to support me having this conversation or to make it easier, right? Maybe I make sure I don't have any distractions in the environment, or that my partner is not distracted, that we are both focusing on this conversation, right? Emotionally, maybe I do a steer map before I talk to my partner, right? Maybe I just journal a little bit about what my feelings are so that I'm clearer on what I want to say. And maybe thinking about like, how do I want to feel when I'm actually engaging in this conversation with my partner? Maybe you look at relational and you see, where can I get support there? Maybe you want to do some sort of bonding activity with your partner first before you have this difficult conversation so that you know that your relationship is strong before you do that. Or let's say you look at a different relationship for support, right? Like maybe you phone your best friend and you say, like, I'm about to have this conversation and I'm feeling stressed out and like, can we just talk about it or something like that? You can look at existential, right? You can think about like, how does this, having this conversation, how does that relate to my values, right? Maybe I value being honest, or maybe I value connecting and being authentic. And that's why I want to have this conversation. And it just helps you with that motivation. It makes it easier for you to engage in that conversation because you know it's connected to your deeper values. Environmental, maybe you say, I want to make sure the environment that we're having this conversation in is conducive to feeling connected, to feeling close to each other. Maybe we sit on the couch in a certain way, or we sit in a room that makes us both feel comfortable, or maybe we sit in a coffee shop, or whatever it is. We make sure that the environment itself is also conducive to you having this conversation. So whatever your action step is, you can take it through almost like a filter. You can go through these areas and think of like, where may I be able to get some support? And like I said, you don't have to go through each one every time. It's just like this idea of every time I want to take an action and maybe it's harder for me, like there's a reason that area of your life is less resourced, right? It probably comes less easily to you. So where can you use support from other areas, and maybe areas that are already very resourced, right? How can you use that to support you, to make that easier, to make your behavior much easier, and to just give you some support? You can also use this tool as a filter, or like a way to look for, where might there be barriers, right? Where might I find information about why I maybe haven't done this before, right? Like maybe having that conversation with maybe my belief about myself, I have this identity around like, well, I don't know how to communicate my feelings, or like I'm just a peacekeeper, right? I don't express when I'm unhappy about something, right? Or maybe barriers, like maybe you see it as a threat to your relationship. Like if I express this, if I have this conversation, it's going to threaten our relationship. And maybe you think like, I can't handle the emotions that are going to come from this conversation, right? It can be a way to look for clues of like, why is this hard, right? Our behavior is not completely like illogical. There are always reasons why we do certain behaviors or don't do certain behaviors. It might look very illogical to us on the surface, but I promise you, once you start looking at your deep health as like a filter to also understand yourself more, and you start to be like, this makes total sense. Like, of course you're scared that your relationship is going to be, it's going to affect your relationship, right? Like, of course you feel like you might have a threat to your safety or your identity or whatever it is. Like you start to understand your behavior more, and you start to understand the barriers to why that thing might have been hard. And then, oh, sorry. That was what steer map. Okay. I talked about that already. So steer map can also be used in this purpose. And then the deep health is also, it's a concept for you to kind of look at your health through to make sure that it's meaningful to you, that it's impactful, that it matters, that it's wider and deeper than just one area. And it can also be a way that you actually approach your behavior change. It can be a tool. Okay, so we're going to just kind of end off. And I just wanted to say, like, doing this work with you guys is so incredible, because so this is the way that I kind of like think about it, is like magic happens when women clinicians are healthy, they are energized, and they are lit up by the work we do. And that's kind of what we've been doing on this workshop, right? That's the shifts that we've been trying to make. So we want to have our health from a deep health perspective. We want to be energized. We want that cup to be so full, and we want to really be like fulfilled and lit up by the work that we do. And this is the work that lights me up. So using the tool and the workshop itself. So we already want to be making like perspective shift and getting these resources from the workshop itself. And then also to continue this in a more like long-term aspect. You can keep going back to the replays. They will live in the Facebook group as well. You can keep going back to the tools and the perspectives and all the things that we covered in this. You can keep building that vision of a full cup of like, what does it feel like to me? Why is it important to me? You can keep applying these tools and think of it as like, the more you use these on a consistent basis, the more your cup is going to be full, the more energized you're going to be, the more you're going to be fulfilled at work. And this is the work that I also do with clients as well. So if this is something that you want more support on, if you want to keep that journey going and you want someone to be on that journey with you, this is what I do as well. So we're essentially doing what we had elements of in this workshop. So we are looking at like, where are you right now? What is your deep health right now in objective measures and subjective measures? Where are you right now? And then where do you want to go? What is that vision, right? What kind of clinician do you want to be? What kind of human do you want to be? What kind of work do you want to do? And we take that kind of where you are now and that bigger vision, and we say like, how can we build a bridge between here and there? And that bridge is made up of different forms of support, different tools and resources. And essentially, like, I like to think about it as like, you take your brain and your body everywhere you go. You take you wherever you go. So you are always the common denominator wherever you are, for better and for worse, right? So when we are working on these things, when we are working on our deep health and our emotions and our mental recovery and health, we are going to take that with us to every patient interaction, every interaction with the people in our lives. We're going to take that with us if we decide to go to a new job, if we decide a new career, a new country, right? We are always going to be there. So working on our deep health and what it's like to be us, right? Like what is it like to be me? What is it like to be inside my own brain and body? And how can I have that optimized to be able to have the experience of life that I want and the interaction with the world that I want? So I work with clients for 3 months and we do 90-minute coaching calls. So we do like deep dive calls every 2 weeks. And then in between those times, I'm available to you all the time. So you can email me with things. We do like almost real-time coaching. So you'll send me like a steer map on like, this is something that triggered me in practice, or this is how my sleep was going. And we'll look at feedback on that, reflections on that. What can we try next? How can we tweak that? So essentially thinking of like everything that we encounter on that bridge between where you are now and where you want to go, we tackle those things together. And you may be thinking like, I'm already busy, I'm already stressed and overwhelmed. Like I do not have time for like another thing. But just think about this as like, this is the work that will help you get that time back, that will help you with prioritizing, that will help you fill your cup, that will help you with what's draining it, that will help you fill it. We work on prioritization and boundaries and time management. So if you are interested in that, I'm going to just put my link to a consultation call in the comments. It's also going to be in the email with the replay, so you can access it there as well. And then that consultation call is essentially just for us to talk about, like, is this the right fit for you, right? Is this a mutual yes? Like, we want to work together, like based on where you are now, where you want to go. We talk about like logistics and pricing, and then we decide like, is this the best decision for you where you are right now? Okay. So I'm going to open for questions. I just want to stop my share. So anything that we did yesterday or today, anything that you still want to workshop, anything that you still want to ask, I'm going to open for questions now. Comments, action steps. Linus? Yeah, no, I'll keep the recording going for now. And if you guys did still have action steps that you want to share, because I don't think we got that far. We can keep this conversation going in the Facebook group as well. So I'll keep posting about like the steer map. I'll keep posting about, action steps that we're taking, and we can help each other on this journey as well. Boundaries are a big struggle for me. Okay. What? Boundaries? Who struggles with boundaries? Okay, Amara, can anyone share the tools they're using to turn down the anxiety, looking for inspiration? I'll definitely share some with you. One of the books I love so much is called, and let me just type it in. This is like, for me, with my anxiety, this was like the most amazing. Oh, I almost typed in The Science of Stuck. The Science of Stuck by Britt Frank. But she essentially talks about, sorry, let me get to your question now. She essentially talks about anxiety as, if you think of like your car, right? Your check engine light, or the light that comes on when your engine is whatever, something's wrong with your engine. Me and cars. The light that comes up, that is essentially how we can think about anxiety. So we're not trying to get rid of the anxiety. We're not trying to like, how can we get rid of the anxiety? We're going like, what is happening that I'm feeling anxious? Like, what is happening underneath in the engine that is making the engine light come on, rather than how can I get that anxiety reduced? Does that make sense? So that'll be different for every person. But I think just getting curious about like what might be the actual underlying thing. But then there are tools and all of that that I'll definitely share with you from a more like practical perspective. But if you want like a paradigm shift of that, The Science of Stuck is like the most amazing book ever. Just in general as well, even for people without anxiety, it's such a cool book. Boundaries. Okay. So there are also a lot of books that I could share. But I think maybe one of the things to notice is like, I think when we are not used to it, it tends to come when we literally can't take it anymore. And it tends to then come out as quite mean or bitchy, or like just, like I literally can't take this anymore, and it like explodes. And so, and also just from a perspective of like what was modeled to us, like, do you have models of people who set good boundaries and set it kindly? But just in general, we have so many thoughts and assumptions about boundaries because of those two things, like how it's modeled and how we tend to think about set boundaries, which is like, right? So we tend to think of them as mean or, yeah, like destroying the relationship in some kind of way. Whereas boundaries can actually be a way that you are trying to protect the relationship. So you're trying to see like, how can there's the quote that I shared in the group is like, boundaries is the distance where I can love you and me at the same time. So we're trying to have this space where like, I'm still making sure that I'm taken care of, I'm loving myself, I'm doing what I need. And that from. If I overstep those boundaries, I can't love you fully. I can't be present with you fully because of what I'm then experiencing. So I think that's the one thing is like just really fully feeling into the fact that it's not something mean. It's not like something that you're doing to destroy the relationship. It's not like the selfish thing. It's literally the thing that is protecting the relationship sometimes, and sometimes just your peace, your mental or physical peace. So it's literally just a statement of like, this is what I will and will not accept. And that can be done in the kindest way possible and assertive. Doesn't have to be like very passive. Like we all have boundaries. They just sometimes, yeah, instead of like where we want them to be, right? And it's only like when it's like, oh, I'm like suffocating, then I'll say something. Um, but there are more tools that I can share with you now. But I think just like recognizing why you might be scared to do it is also part of it, or why you might not want to do it. I love that deeper look at things rather than just being like, this is wrong. So this is my goal, actually taking it apart a bit and looking at why, and love the idea of using other areas to support an action in one area. Such an amazing concept that I can build on so much. I'm so glad. And feel free to share me like feedback, like I did this, I tried this, or whatever. I love hearing. Awesome. Thank you so much. Guys, thank you so much for being here. So special. Thank you. And yeah, let me know if you have any more questions or just like want to workshop things, or like I said, sharing like your images of like, this is my deep health, big, like full cup vision, and then continuing this conversation further. Thanks, everyone. Let me stop the recording.